My name is Rachel Bondi, and I'm coming from Los Angeles, Hollywood, California, to Argentina today. And thank you for welcoming me to speak to you today. Entonces, should I try to practice my Spanish or no? No puedo hablar muy bien en español. Okay. So I'm going to run a quick video here, and then we'll go into my talk. Is this working? Woohoo! But you can't hear anything.
By next year, it's predicted that nearly half the video games on the market will be played on the cloud. The cloud is helping reinvent entire business models, from gaming to energy to finance, by speeding innovation. How can the cloud change your business?
There you go. So I'm going to talk about the cloud and cloud gaming, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the new era of cognitive computing for how it applies to the game space. And I might dance. So I came to IBM from a big Hollywood agency called CAA, where I was in charge of cloud and mobile there for a bunch of celebrities who asked to do vanity video games like Jennifer Lopez's Dance Pad or Stan Lee's Verticus. And prior to that, I was on the original Xbox Live launch team at Microsoft. Moving DirectX to the console, and then launching the Xbox Live services for multiplayer games, which was very exciting. And at IBM, we have a unique position and point of view with cognitive. Has anyone here seen the information about Watson, or Watson winning the game of Jeopardy? Yes? Yes? Is that something you're interested in learning more about putting into your development? Okay, good. So at least we have that. I'm in charge of what's called BIG, which is Business Infrastructure for Games. And I will use my little clicker here. This is my favorite slide. We've been doing business and games for a very long time. And these are some of the companies that are using IBM right now. You may not know it, but we have quite a few companies using IBM services, software, hardware, Aspera, software, in order to enhance a game experience. In fact, right now, there's over 200 million people on IBM systems playing games, which is kind of exciting when you think about it. We're one of the most unknown players in game playing, I guess you'd say. I like to think of it as easy as 1, 2, 3. There's one IBM, no matter who you speak with, as large as the company is. We're all talking about hybrid cloud solutions and these cognitive cloud solutions into solution stacks that include analytics, mobile, social, and security. But we do this in 2 areas. So as you can see here, it's for the games industry, what you would think of as traditional studios, retail, entertainment, but also sports, and the quantifiable self, so wearables like Fitbit. Then there's industry games, which is an entirely different class of game development for serious games, games for good, games for war, simulation games. We have different sorts of brand launches and campaign management that involve games. There's, in addition to that, there's employee app stores. So now big companies want to have applications inside for employees that are consumerized, since companies are, employees are used to having certain consumer apps on their mobile phone. And then, of course, telematics, which is all of the game platforms that you might get as you're driving around in your new car. Oops, I want to go back on that, because there's three areas where people are transforming in this space. So one is systems of engagement, the other is systems of insight, and the third is systems of operation. So what we mean by that is that a system of engagement is how you're actually doing user interface, human-computer interaction, how you're designing the entertainment that somebody is experiencing, all the way from a big screen of a movie theater down to a little screen on your watch and everything in between, powered by set-top boxes, consoles. And then what you want to do is build those systems to give you the insights down to a customer of one, but also for the fan base. New game systems are engaging the audience just as much as the player. And then the operations piece of it, of course, is the things that have to do with running the business. So financial systems, HR systems, and things, managing how many people worldwide have to work in a federated infrastructure in order to develop a game globally at this point. Is this not the most busy slide you've ever seen in your life? I was trying to figure out, and I actually have a video made for this that I can't show. I can't get my laptop working, but I did get the presentation done. But if you're enjoying reading this, the difference between us and our competitors in this space is 75 years. So anybody who's been doing games knows that games started on the IBM mainframes. They started by renting time to develop software programs that no one was supposed to be playing. In fact, the first video games started crashing the systems because people were playing the games more than they were doing the actual scientific work at the universities. But we also have, the launch of the idea of intellectual property management with the Star Trek game launching in the industry. That also was something that was developed on an IBM mainframe. And at that point, now you have licensed video games starting up in the market. Now, this is not your today's Star Trek game. This was a couple of little lines, and of course, we're talking about games like Checkers. Being the first game in 1956 that was televised to show the computing power of the IBM, I believe it was the 901 computer at the time. It was the 701. In any case, we've done chip development for the actual brown box, to the Nintendo, to the Xbox 360. And today, moving out of the arcade into the living room, across the universe of game innovation, we have games for malaria. We do games for different governments for strategy, first-person shooter training. We do the Interactive Agency does the Coca-Cola rewards and the Tiffany jewelry websites. So we have all sorts of interactive experiences. We have interactive kiosks as well, museums. All of these are actually gamified entertainment experiences that are doing the same thing that you would do in a video game, which is get an audience member interested and trying to make them stay. Stay with the brand, stay with the title. And so that's the business that we're in, is creating those digital experiences and then delivering them. In fact, SoftLayer, which is our hosting business, out of the top 100 customers, more than half of them would be video games or social games. And of course, at the end here, we also do hackathons, sponsored hackathons for different companies who want multiple apps developed. We have programs for entrepreneurs where you can get free services, free access to infrastructure as a service through Catalyst and through Bluemix, which is our development platform. Can I ask if anybody's heard of Bluemix? Anyone? So this is going to be news for you in a little bit. Now, aside from IBM, this is what most people are dealing with, is an engagement framework. So how do I bring in all of these various pieces in an open API architecture, API economy, in order to have a multi-cloud environment delivering my data fabric from all of these various sources, the analytics piece, and the application framework. And as you can see, you basically have 4 types of clouds here. So one is a set of creative cloud solutions for people who are creating products and services. The second is the consumption. And I put Jarvis up there for all of you Marvel fans, because it doesn't really matter what sort of screen you're looking on, you're still consuming that sort of entertainment experience or engagement. And then on some sort of a screen. Then you have the connective services, which is the piece in between. And of course, on the sides, you have what are the core competencies for any business, from marketing to security to human resources. In the game world, this is what it means, is that in the past, you were building an individual entertainment experience for some sort of device release, one console, one title, and you would build up the entire infrastructure based on releasing that one title or experience. What everyone is moving to now in a cloud environment and what it enables is a component-based architecture, a RESTful architecture, an OpenStack architecture, one that can deliver on multiple devices for the future. This is now becoming antiquated, and this is the future state of game development. But what comes with that is also people changes in the organization. And having come from a background of media, I would liken it to motion pictures, how certain motion pictures take years to develop and release, assign a producer, director, the cast, work on the different media, provide the music that's associated with it. Those games will still be made, but what's happened is, with moving to mobile, it's much more like the music industry now. Mobile apps are more like releasing a song every week for 99 cents, or moving into releasing an album, or looking for the topic that will be the type of music that somebody wants to listen to, and hoping that they will continue to listen to that and go forward with it and stick with that artist. When you're developing mobile apps, the cycle becomes much more agile. It still requires a creative effort, but it's much quicker paced. And then, of course, PC games are similar to like releasing television shows, where you have the same sorts of elements, but it's a little bit faster and a little bit slower than the other two. These types of games require that your organization actually change how people think about delivering software or an entertainment experience, from studio all the way through to consumption. People have to figure out how to use the different APIs and who you want in the partner ecosystem, not only to do the creation, but also the connection and the consumption pieces. And then you have to reimagine how you're doing your core business processes, how often you're bringing people in, what's their talent set going forward, and how do you unify that to produce more and more experiences. Is everybody still on with me now? Have any of you experienced the difference between the old days and the new days on this? And are you crunched in between, or are you finding more work? Yeah? Yeah. Okay. So at IBM, we have a platform as a service called Bluemix, which apparently no one here has heard of, and that's fine because it's only a couple of years old. And right now, we're having partnership discussions with the usual suspects like Unreal and Unity engines to incorporate their SDK. But we've already got the Visual Studio components. So if you're a C person or if you're programming for .NET, you'll find that all of those tools are here, but you'll also find that the platform delivers in things that you're used to working with as well. That are free services. The difference is that when you're developing in our Bluemix platform, you also have the capability of all of IBM software and also our API partners in sort of a drag and drop, let me help you develop environment. Here is a couple of examples of what that looks like for games. So say you're developing on the client side and you're using HTML5 plus Unity because you want a 2D, 3D experience, and you also want to run a website that can also run on mobile. So in the Bluemix architecture, you would actually look at your delivery, your scaling, your single sign-on capability in all cases, and then what type of data management you want to use, what type of analytics you want to have. So one of the cool things is, if you guys are familiar with Watson, is being able to have cognitive capability within your application. Be able to tell what sorts of conversations are going on in social media, what sorts of conversations are going on in chat during gameplay, and also taking up the history of the game to have live analytics in play to feedback for live ops, and also have analytics that are archived to talk about what is the player activity around different sets of information, and be able to interpret that not only from a descriptive point of view, but with Watson, a prescriptive point of view, which is to say, here's what we see is going on, so here's what Watson recommends, even down to the emotions or the feelings of the players that may be playing or the audience that may be watching. And this comes up with some really, really fascinating situations of managing how people are thinking and interpreting, especially in a live event, if using these types of things to develop applications where you may wear a bracelet to an esports event, and the event manager can pick up whether or not you're happy with what tournament you're watching, and readjust the gameplay, the players, or things based off of your biofeedback, your location, all of these different interpretive things that are much more cognitive in play. Is that interesting? Yes. That's good. Okay. And of course, it's our game stack is based on Ubuntu, so it's something that is scalable, it's secure, and you can, again, choose to use security services if you want to for governance, risk compliance, but also for intrusion detection, DDoS attack prevention, that sort of thing. And here's a typical taxonomy of what that would look like within the gameplay itself and within the data center services. And the reason I'm doing this is because a lot of times when you're trying to move from an antiquated situation to a more modern situation, you actually need to redesign your whole architecture and the people that are supporting the architecture to move to a different way of game release, which looks something like that. And as you can see here, it's also supporting the business of the games. So we have some examples of this. In our space, Kulu is using our services in order to release social games on Facebook. We've got breakaway games that a major retailer in the US was launching different clinics within their stores, and they wanted to have a game for clinics. And so we had breakaway games create a game to get people to come in and use their stores within the retailer. SohoNet does over-the-top streaming. Is anybody familiar with Square Enix and Shinra games? They're using our infrastructure to stream their new launch for the fully streamed video game interaction with 24 screens combo, which is kind of cool, and that's part of why I love my job. Big Fish Games is a really good example of analytics. So they have a type of casino game without payoffs. In fact, I think they were recently acquired by Churchill Downs, the horse racing company. But they use the analytics in order to be able to watch exactly what's being played and change gameplay as it's being played, and then release new titles according to the things that they're learning within those analytics. Ustream is a partner of ours for delivering, right now, they're delivering the PlayStation 4 launch globally. So if you go to their site, they have all of the different sites of the PlayStation 4 and the esports associated with that, so you can watch them all on one screen. It's kind of cool. But also in video, we have things that are coordinated with our IBM Lab services. One that I've been working on recently is a first of a kind for crowdsourced video, where all of you would be filming me. Our back end would be able to tell who's got the best shot of me, and then our analytics would be able to tell which thing that I'm talking about as you're filming me would be the most popular if it were put on social media. And that can be used backwards as well in order to find breaking news stories as they come out and start to incorporate those types of things into application development. From a business point of view, it always comes down to what are the reports telling you? How happy are people? Are they staying? Have you resolved your disintermediation between how separated you are from your players, your audience, and your fan and yourself? And from a project point of view, you're always looking at, is this going to make us more money or is this going to cut cost? And that's how we decide which things that we want to pursue. And that's the end of my presentation for right now, which I was told is okay because we were starting to run a little bit late as well. But I'd like to take any sort of questions that you might have. I know that this particular presentation was not getting into the nitty-gritty of developing on Bluemix, and we have that. We certainly can get you all Bluemix accounts so that you can experiment with that if that's what you would like to do. And on the websites, you can sign up to be a Watson developer. It's as easy as going to IBM and signing up for that experience. If you want to see what a Watson app looks like, I just met a guy who developed an app called Ask Sophie in Unity, and the back end is all Watson-based healthcare. So in essence, Sophie is a little bit like Baymax in Big Hero 6. You get a camera shot, it does facial recognition, and she says, well, you don't look well. And then you start there, which is kind of interesting. Take a look at that app and see if you could do something better or more interesting, because that's what it's all about, is seeing how far you can push the capability of the systems that exist into some new experience and then leave a great legacy that you're the one who did it, right? Be part of that team, and we want to enable that today. So, and there's me. If anybody wants to reach me. Thank you. So, any questions? Am I going to have silence? It's okay, either way. You can find me individually too if you want. Right there.
Yeah, hi, I have a question. You talked about using Watson with the prescriptive
yes,
data.
Descriptive versus prescriptive.
What would be the, for example, if one would like to have changes in the gameplay, as you spoke to, is there any kind of latency that one should expect and integrate in the design, or is it actually something immediate, the response?
It depends on which aspect of Watson. So the question is, what kind of latency is built into the gameplay if you start incorporating artificial intelligence or cognitive computing, right?
For example, yeah, if I want to incorporate player mood
yes.
into my gameplay, what kind of latency should I expect? Something like that.
Mm-hmm. So we've been playing with this. If you actually develop it into a mobile app, there's not an issue. If you're trying to do something like a multiplayer first-person shooter, then it becomes a problem. So the way that Watson works, and I was explaining this earlier today to somebody, when Google got started, what they did was they took a look at the internet as it was, and they were saying, this website's connected to that website. And Google ended up creating a search engine that was all about a popularity contest. These are the sites that are most popular. And it still returns results based on that type of popularity. What Watson does is much more like what we do as people. We take in information and we don't care how popular it is. What we want is the information or the source of information that we trust. And so Watson assigns a probability to the information that's being taken in and says, here's what I trust, and therefore here's what I would recommend to you. In gameplay, so we've been talking with some very large companies about this because most of the large studios have some sort of artificial intelligence committee, and it's a little bit different to talk about machine learned versus what the cognitive piece, although they sort of overlap. The difference is that in the cognitive space, in our capabilities, with games, you want to stick to something that Watson can learn first and or that it can teach others how to do. You want to be able to have it, once it's learned, then it can take on a character or it can have a dialogue in play. So like today, you may have a menu choice where you start to have a conversation. Tomorrow, with this capability, you'd actually be teaching Watson as you play. Watson would be taking in the information of all the players and what they're doing, and eventually you may have to try beating Watson at its own game while it has a tremendous advantage of learning everything about what's going on as it sees it. It's a natural language process. Right now we have it in English and Spanish. Again, with the first-person shooter versus a turn-based, it's a little bit of a challenge because Watson works better having ingested the information in a data warehouse versus there's Watson Analytics for live play, for live video stream analytics and metadata, and they're kind of two separate things. So it really depends, but there's no issue once you've developed because you're not calling back to the server. You're actually incorporating the learning into the application if it's the type of game that fits. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. That's a good question. Are you excited about trying that out, or?
I mean, I'm not a programmer, so
Oh.
I'm a client. I'm looking for the possibility that
Yes.
say we could use this for something.
Yeah, and if you did, I'd be happy about that because we want to make a splash with people trying this out. It's new. It's never been done.
Can I ask a follow-up? Sorry.
Excuse you guys. I'm just gonna have a
Have you had any? You see how the Dota and League of Legends game are having a big boost in esports in general.
Yes.
You briefly touched on esports, but for example, there's a big problem that we try to address from a design standpoint. That is player behavior and
Yes.
to avoid actually bad behavior.
Yes.
I don't know. Could a system like Watson be called?
Oh, you're gonna give him the mic?
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
The short question is, could a system like Watson be called in to assist someone running a big online game with lots of rooms to assist where foul play is going on and
Yeah.
players complaining about a cheat or something like that in order to help
Yes.
improve the game's community, for example?
Well, you would use a combination of solutions. So some of the things that we have for security actually are made to find criminals who don't want to be found. And so there are ways of looking at data, sources of data, who's coming into play that aren't necessarily a Watson solution in that. But of course, as Watson's learning, Watson might be able to figure out for you. It's an interesting use case. I'm not sure. But I do know we have other solutions for that. But you brought to mind something else, which was multi-room, multiplayer. So, there are several Oculus Rift experiences developed on IBM right now. And the augmented reality on location at the Australian Open, if you download that app, that's an IBM app right now, because we do the experiences at golf and tennis. We do the schedules for the NFL football team. And so there's various aspects of sports and sports experiences that completely apply to esports, all the way from ticketing, getting people into the right line to buy the food fastest, creating different social experiences at the event. And then one of the gameplay things that was interesting to me that someone asked for is the capability of what they called the Hunger Games. If I'm an audience member and I want to buy things for some celebrity game player, can you set up a commerce system where I can just send them in, the right gun or sword or whatever so that they can kill people? And of course we can do that. We have the capability to set up so that not only you're earning money directly from the game, but also from the fan base who wants to participate in paying for things that maybe the player is too cheap or doesn't want to, just because you see that they're a great player and you're really interested in making them more successful or more popular. So, any other questions? Or as I talk more, does it become more interesting? I don't know. Somebody should ask me one more question then. And if not, I thank you for your time today, and you have my information. Don't be a stranger, and let me know what you'd like to hear about. I'll be happy to answer your questions. Thank you.